Hi Queens, it's your girl Manika-Nia coming from her Natural Living Handbook, and today I got a question for you. Light skin privilege, mixed girl privilege, does it actually exist? Is the answer no, it's just something that dark skin tones make up? Is it B, it depends on the circumstance? Or is it C, is that even a real question? So in case you failed the test, the answer is C, because the other answers are just absolute BS. Light skin privilege is very much a reality, and it all tracks back to, surprise, surprise, colonialism. So in the history of the world, many peoples have conquered many peoples. While that is true, the power paradigm at play at present is a result of white colonialism and white supremacy. The idea of whiteness and preserving whiteness and believing in white superiority might be just an ideal, but it is very much an ideal that has stuck and has permeated this existence as we know it. And the little sister of whiteness is colorism. And it comes from the idea that the lighter you are, the better you are, because at least in the viewpoint of colorism and colonialism, the lighter you are, the closer to white you are, so the better you are. You can agree with me or not, but that's the word. Maybe there's something more at play than whiteness, because I know in many ancient cultures it's that same kind of ideal, like the whiter you are, the lighter you are, the more pure you are. I don't know if it's to do with sunlight versus nighttime. I don't know, but I do know that's the T, and I personally think that it connects with colonialism, specifically white colonialism. So why am I talking about this on this channel, you ask? Well, first, because it's my platform. And also because I want to use this platform not only to celebrate female divinity, but to traverse down topics that impact us as a people and as women. I also merely want to open up this discussion on this platform as someone who very much sits in this kind of privilege. I know that I would more respect a white person who could talk openly and understand that they benefit from white privilege. And I very much want to address the fact that I understand that I live in it. I want to soundboard what that means. And I also want to soundboard what I can do to create space for my sisters that live outside of that kind of privilege. This is such an interesting topic for me, and I've had so many discussions with friends and read so many things from strangers. And one article that I want to highlight and that I'm going to be talking about for the majority of this video is from metro.co.uk. I believe they do this kind of series called Mixed Up, where a lot of mixed race people come and talk about different issues and topics to do with being mixed. This specific article was called "Don't Call Me Privileged Because I Have Lighter Skin," and you should totally check it out. I'll link it in the description box. But in it, the subject, who is a actor, talks about understanding colorism and understanding that it exists, but have a problem with the term light skin privilege or mixed woman privilege, and very much believes that she does not have any kind of privilege because of her lighter skin tone. She writes, or I suppose because it's an interview, maybe she's talking to the author of the article about growing up in Nigeria and facing issues for not being black enough and being called half caste and really just being bullied for her skin. In the same spear, she talks about being over-sexualized as a light-skinned woman in the industry that she works in, and expresses that it's something that is deeply hurtful and on par with a darker woman who faces challenges for her skin tone. The woman in the article is mixed with Nigerian, white English, English and Portuguese, but both of her parents are mixed, so I believe that her father is Nigerian and Portuguese and her mother is Nigerian and English. And she talks about this program that came on the BBC where it was discussing colorism and light skin privilege. And she writes, one of the women said that colorism is when a guy says, I only date a paying lightie. It is the same idea I have heard before, that there is more of a market for light-skinned and mixed race women. The reality of colorism is of course harmful and hurtful to dark-skinned women, but there is no real consideration of how harmful the perpetuation of these sexualized stereotypes about light-skinned and mixed race women can be. Okay, so I get the over-sexualized aspect. Because I'm a huge advocate for over-sexualizing women in general, if you are a subscriber of this channel or a loyal follower, you know that I have problems with us being viewed as only sexual beings. So I get that, but what's problematic for me in just that little paragraph that I read is that I think women with darker skin tones have more challenges regarding colorism than just what some men's preference is of skin tones. To me, it goes further than that and so much deeper than that, and colorism affects representation, beauty ideals, because we very much live in this Eurocentric beauty standard, and all of it goes further systemically and systematically. So my problems with these kinds of sentiments are when people deny that light skin privilege exists or that mixed race privilege exists. And this is coming from someone who falls within that category. I personally don't even like the term light-skinned at all, or dark skin, because for me it has a connotation. I am a huge history buff, specifically African American history, so light skin, it has this connotation in my head that it's seen within our community as, oh, light skin is better and dark skin is looked at as worse. So I don't even like using the term, but I think that that's very much because I can see examples of that privilege. And it's not to say that lighter skin or mixed race people don't have challenges. Again, coming from someone who falls within this category, I know the struggles that I have, but I also very much understand the privilege that I sit with and the way people look at me or perceive me in comparison to someone who has a darker shade or who is maybe less ambiguous. And I've seen it. I've seen it with my own eyes. I have seen the way people refer to black people when I'm in a room because they don't know that I fall within the category. I've been called okay before because I'm not black. And if we just take those two examples, put it into perspective in a prospective employer context. If there is even a small percentage of people who have that kind of ingrained preference to lighter people, then yes, that is very much a privilege that light-skinned people live within. And it's a privilege that those on the deeper tone spectrum don't have. So back to this article, she goes on to say, yes, there are advantages to being mixed, just like there are advantages to being black, but I don't see it as a privilege in the same sense. So I'm actually going to not say what I think about that sentence because I'd love to open that up and hear what you all think. Then she goes on to explain about being at university in England and experiencing what she calls racism on both sides of the spectrum. She says, in the space of a week at university, I was called a black bitch by a random white man and was then silenced and verbally attacked by some of my black peers when I tried to share my views about the antagonism colorism causes between mixed and lighter skinned women and dark skinned black women. And okay, she's right in that colorism does create a divide, specifically in the black community.
Just a jigaboo, trying to find something to do. Well, you're all wanna be better than me.
But that doesn't make it any less real that colorism and thus light skin privilege exists. And that's really what my point is, because I've seen this argument so much, and I feel like for the most part it's the melanin rich on one side of the argument and the melanin less on the other. And I wish and hope that more people can take themselves out of it and see colorism and light skin privilege for what it is. And also, just because you have lighter skin, it doesn't mean that it's your fault or you're to blame, but it also doesn't mean that it's not true just because it applies to you. I do also understand, going back to what she said about colorism creating a divide in the black community.
You're just a jigaboo, trying to find something to do. Well, you're all wanna be better than me.
But to me, it just reminds me a little bit too much of, you know, when you are speaking to a white person about white privilege or white supremacy and they hit you with a, oh, we're all just one, you know, you shouldn't say that kind of stuff. All the race talk and white privilege talk just divides us. Like, no, racism and colorism divides us, not the conversation about it. It will be there if we don't have a discussion about it. Dismissing it and not addressing it does not stop the divide. And in my humble opinion, it's only through the communication and the conversation that we can work to fix the problem. So I definitely found a lot of problematic sentiments in her piece regarding discrimination felt on both sides. She goes on to say, this is the thing. I know that racial discourse explains that black people can't be racist, and institutionally I understand their discrimination can't oppress. But I tell you what, both of those experiences felt exactly the same. Now that's a very interesting point, and I will never deny somebody's feelings. And I know it's a struggle to be mixed. I know it's a struggle to be paler skinned within the black community.
Don't you ever worry about that, 'cause I don't mind being black.
You can watch my video here to see some of the experiences I've had growing up as a mixed child and a mixed adolescent, and see some of the experiences that myself and my sisters went through for not looking black enough. It was a struggle. I also recently read someone's post on Facebook. It was actually during the protests. The post was amazing. It was very well written from somebody that I went to high school with. I completely felt the post, but he did mention one thing about, oh, leaving mixed people alone, meaning like don't come for them because it's their time to be black now too. And that really put me in my feelings, because for me, I've very much felt black my whole life, even if others don't see me that way. And I know the identity ramifications that come from being mixed, but I have real trouble believing that the struggles that myself and other mixed race or lighter skinned women face match the struggles of our darker buried sisters. What she said is also problematic for me, just like I say earlier, because it kind of goes back to the thing. An example, a friend of mine posted something during the protests, and he said to all my friends, all my white friends, basically, y'all got all the time in the world to post about Ibiza and going back to Ibiza, but you couldn't post something in solidarity with your black brothers and sisters. I see you, and I'm not effing with you, basically. And I commented, got no time for none of them, period. And this girl, I don't know her, but she commented back saying like her boyfriend's mixed race, and you know, people are struggling, and Ibiza is like a shining beacon or something, and they just want to post about it. But it hurt her that he said something like that because she considers him a friend, blah blah blah. So I had to pull up on the girl real quick. And one thing you do not want is for me to pull up in words, in writing. But anyway, after all the pulling up, she hit me with a, oh, but we're all one, and it's the government, they're to blame. So it's that kind of thing when something is addressed or is put in front of your face and you defer, like, oh no, but don't blame me, let's blame someone else. Like, no, just sit with it. I'm not saying it's your fault that you were born white or that you have white privilege, but understand it. Understand that you do. And so, going back to the lady of this article, I felt that it was quite similar. Like, look, I have all of these struggles as a mixed woman, so don't say that I have privilege. But you do. And I don't want to take away from her and her experience. I personally do not know and never will know what it's like growing up in Africa as a lighter or paler skinned black person. I understand that I don't understand that reality of being called, I think it's Oyembo, I think that means white. Correct me in the comments if it's wrong. I also know I went for dinner with a couple of friends, each from different African cultures, so not African American, but African, who told me that basically I'm considered white in Africa. So I'm not taking away at all from the author or the subject of the interview's experiences in living with that. But from everything that I've seen, from everywhere that I've lived, and in the current climate of our world, the struggles are not matched between lighter skinned people and darker skinned people. And I genuinely believe that the lighter you are, the more privilege you have, in spite of all your struggles. And that's all I have to say about that. What have you got to say about it? What do you think? Is this a new topic for you? Is it something that you've never discussed before? Do you totally disagree? Let me know in the comments. Let's keep this discussion going because it's important and it's relevant. Thanks for joining me in this Money Honey Talks series. Come back and join me next Thursday for one of the more popular topics within this channel, natural breast enhancement. Specifically going over breast types and understanding how that can help us with our natural breast enhancement journey. Until then, queens, don't you forget to treat yourself. Look after your divinity, sis, and keep pushing for a better you, mind, body, and spirit, and thus a better world. Facts. Until next time, love ya. Bye.